With Gene Dodaro's 15-year term closed out and Orice Williams Brown leading the Government Accountability Office in an acting capacity, Congress and the administration now face a high-stakes selection governed by one of the most bipartisan appointment processes in government. The next GAO leader must balance independence, expertise, and credibility to keep the work above politics. Janice Luong from the Project on Government Oversight joins me to break down what comes next. Janice, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Terry. Always great to be here.
Hey, we're going to talk about a very important position, the Comptroller General of the United States. Gene Dodaro just retired at the end of December after completing a 15-year term as Comptroller General. And we haven't heard much about what's going to go on behind the scenes to backfill that position. Tell me from POGO's perspective, what's so important about this position and what's at stake?
Sure. So the Comptroller General position is there to essentially ensure that the tires are running in the right direction and that the cogs in the machine are well oiled. They essentially lead the operations of the GAO and evaluate the agency's impact. They set the work standard and culture. And if we look back at Gene Dodaro's tenure, one aspect of this is to improve financial literacy. That was something that he has mentioned during his confirmation hearing, and that was something that we have heard him speak about throughout his tenure. So that is one aspect of culture that I think is really important. And not only is the Comptroller General responsible for auditing domestically, but also they engage in international audit-related forums. And to that end, the goal is to strengthen global accountability and to share best practices. And I think that speaks to the caliber and standard of the agency in of itself. They're also responsible for communicating the work that they produce before Congress. And this could look like submitting reports and correspondence or testifying before Congress. The Comptroller General is, by design and practice, nonpartisan and independent. And the effectiveness of the agency is only as good as the person leading it, because the Comptroller General has to work with both Democrats and Republicans, and indeed they have collaborated, and I think the positive impact of their work is evident, given that, throughout the years, the federal government has implemented on average 75% of their recommendations. And when Dodaro exited, if you look at the GAO's website under his biography, you'll see that there are commendations by members of Congress, by both the Senate and the House. So to that end, I very much look forward to seeing how our current acting Comptroller General, Orice Williams, will lead this agency during this time.
Janice, one of the things you didn't mention is that the Comptroller General works for Congress and GAO is a party on the legislative branch, not the executive branch, even though the Comptroller General is nominated by the president. How does that dynamic play out?
Correct. So it's quite interesting, I guess. Like you can say that throughout history there has been tensions throughout the executive branch and Congress. When the appointment process was established in 1980 by the Government Accounting Office Act, it actually took 10 years for us to get here. So its first deliberation started in 1970. Within those 10 years, the executive branch and legislative branch went back and forth on the authority and scope of the GAO. And the appointment process is deliberately complex. It requires bicameral and bipartisan cooperation. And when going back to the process itself, when Congress convenes a 10-member commission to recommend at least 3 candidates to the president has to choose from that list, or the president can request additional names. This is how it was historically done, and this is how it's expected to be done. But legislators in the past have also acknowledged that the president can nominate someone outside of that commission's list. And then the president chooses from the list. or the president can request additional names. This is how it was historically done, and it's how it's expected to be done. And after the president chooses, it goes back to the Senate, and the full Senate votes to confirm or reject the nominee.
I'm speaking with Janice Luong. She's a policy associate at the Project on Government Oversight's Effective and Accountable Government team. Well, Janice, they didn't have a nominee. The commission didn't meet before Mr. Dodaro retired. What are you hearing about the process? Is it getting underway?
So with this question, I will lean heavily on the beauty of saying, I'm not sure. I don't have an answer to that. It's been pretty quiet around here. And again, Orice Williams right now is in an acting capacity, and this was a position that Dodaro has had as well for 2 years before he was officially appointed. And the one thing that I could speak to on this is just to highlight that the position Orice Williams is in at this point does not necessarily mean that she is out of the running to be officially appointed as well. There is no statutory deadline requiring Congress to begin the appointment process. So we will see.
Are there particular qualities or characteristics or professional certifications that a Comptroller General needs to have?
I think first and foremost, the most important quality is for the Comptroller General to be independent and nonpartisan. They have to be ethical, of course. I mean, when you are the top accountability watchdog, you don't expect any less. Now, the Comptroller General manages a large cohort of government employees. So when they have some experience in financial management, auditing experience, that comes with the territory. And they also need to have oversight and accountability expertise. And as Gene Dodaro said, being Comptroller General and the agency in itself, it is a people's business. So being able to navigate contentious waters, partisan maneuvers by Congress, that is very important. That is more of an art than a concrete skill, but that is a quality that is very important for its effectiveness.
When you think about those qualities, Janice, are there folks who rise to the top of a potential consideration list beyond Orice Williams Brown, who's currently the acting?
So at this moment, POGO is looking to our Inspector General's community to get more information on who would be suitable for this position. And POGO is also exploring different options out there in terms of who we think would be best fit for this position. But that is my long-winded way of saying we don't have a specific individual in mind, but we are definitely exploring options.
You've walked us through how the process is supposed to work, what considerations are supposed to be taken into account as folks get nominated. But this year, this administration has sort of defied every expected process for some of these nominations. How does the intersection of the political environment, the priorities, and the pressures, do you think, going to come together to shape this process? Do you expect it to unroll exactly as it's written, or are you expecting it to be somewhat different?
So regarding whether this process will run smoothly this time around, my short answer would lean on no more than yes, although I am holding my breath on it. I'm going to be optimistic. But if we go back to the Clinton and Obama administration, Republicans and Democrats also clashed on which names to add onto the list. During the Clinton administration, each party sent a separate list of nominees to the president and eventually appointed David Walker. During Obama's administration, while both parties were forming a list, the commission's list, Democrats separately sent a list to Obama, and Republicans followed suit Obama decided to choose Gene Dodaro, who was on the commission's list and received broad support from both parties. So in both instances, both received unanimous Senate confirmation. And I think it really goes to show that while Congress had their own partisan maneuvers and each party struggled to agree, the presidents respected the process overall. And it really shows how effective it is to have at least one independent actor that guardrails the process. And going back to the question of the tensions and dynamics between the legislative branch and executive branch, I think it'll be interesting to see how they will handle deliberations this time around. I see it as a test for both the president and Congress on whether they will allow partisan gridlock to compromise the very thing that they have repeatedly championed, which is holding the government accountable for the interests of the public, specifically by rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse.
I've been speaking with Janice Luong. She's a policy associate at the Project on Government Oversight's Effective and Accountable Government team. Janice, thanks so much for walking us through this process. We're going to keep our fingers crossed.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.